All good.
Alright, so before we get started, there's a beautiful irony to this dog. Because half the people we were watching, half the people come in, and half the people in this room are like, oh. And he's wrinkly, but he's still lovely. So we're talking about evaluating consumer expectations of Botox treatment. We aren't actually testing Botox on this dog. So what is Botox? So essentially Botox has been touted as the most lethal toxin known to man. And some lunatic in 1960 decided that it could cure wrinkles. And the story changes a bit. I suspect personally he was trying to kill his wife and he ended up making her look younger. But essentially what it does is it inhibits the passage of chemicals between the nerves and muscles, and it causes paralysis of the muscles, which underlie wrinkles, particularly facial wrinkles. From our secondary research, it tends to be effective for about 2 to 4 days, and you get paralysis after it's effective for 2 to 4 months, and you get paralysis after 7 to 10 days. Side effects are really minimal. When people do get sick from Botox, it's usually from black market kind of Botox, where someone goes online and buys Botox for $60 and gets them made to inject them, and I call that natural selection. No, I just realised we've been videotaped. So what essentially part of our research project and the research question we had really emphasised the fact that there's an interesting value chain between the pharmaceutical industry and the consumers, especially in Australia, and that is because the pharmaceutical industry is very heavily regulated as to what kind of access it has to consumers. If you go to the States and Canada, and some of the people in this room might be able to attest to that, you see on television advertisements for pharmaceutical products, and you just don't see that in this country because it's banned. Therefore, the pharmaceutical guys have very little influence over consumer expectations of their product and the product that we're looking at through Botox. And also they get very little feedback back from the consumers because they can't draw those insights directly from the consumers. And the middleman here is the medical practitioner. So the pharmaceutical companies regulate with respect to how much access they have to advertising towards medical practitioners. But one of the avenues through that regulation is if they turn their product advertisement into an educational program, for instance, that's permissible within certain guidelines. So we actually feel that there are a number of positive benefits that can arise for the pharmaceuticals as stakeholders from a better understanding of consumers' expectations of Botox, particularly seeing as it is sort of the most lethal toxin known to man. So we started off in terms of our qualitative research, just talking to doctors actually, because they are the middleman and they're the ones who, through various channels, are able to be managed by the pharmaceutical industry through the value chain. And what we did was one-on-one interviews, and we spoke to 3 doctors who were heavily involved in cosmetic dermatology, in particular Botox treatment, and we discussed their perceptions of consumers' expectations, so why people would be getting Botox treatment and what kind of overall satisfaction the consumers, who are essentially the patients in these circumstances, had with respect to their treatment. And in general, the doctors tended to have fairly consistent views on what constituted treatment efficacies, and so the basic stuff that they would have learned in their training with respect to how long it takes to work, how long it works for, what the general side effects are. They tended to, we thought from the responses, tended to inject their own perceptions as to how the consumers evaluated the product. So the way the doctor thought about consumers' expectations of treatment tended to be what was reported rather than necessarily consumers' expectations of treatment. And to a certain extent, this is unavoidable as a bias, given the focus of our qualitative research. The one thing that we did find, and the secondary research tended to indicate that users of Botox tended to be women and tended to be over 35. And one of the things that we drew out of the qualitative research is, yes, consumers of Botox tended to be women, but the age limit was less than we originally thought, at about 30 years of